Well, how are you today? We're thrilled that you're with us. This is God Talk. I am Pastor Dan Smith. And it's my honor to get to be here today to talk about the character of God. I can preach on all kinds of things, but God Talk is what I do. I love talking about the character of God. And we're getting a podcast going and Bible lessons, and everything is around God Talk. That's our brand, our theme. And LOBN said, we'll let you have a sermon series about God. So if you haven't been with us, we've been going through the book of Revelation. And not every verse. We did that more in the other show called God's Prophetic Surprises, John Pauline. They're still going. I hope you'll watch that. But here we're just jumping to certain places where there's character of God issues we should talk about. So today we're looking at Revelation 19. If you have a Bible, or get on your phone and bring that up. And the wedding banquet at the end of the world. I had a young couple come to see me the other day. And they were all excited. She's excited. But she starts to cry. I said, what's wrong? She showed me the ring, $3,000 ring. But she said, he asked me to marry him, and I love him. And I would love to be married to him, but he has this other side to him that I'm concerned about. He said he has many rules, like 10 rules I have to follow all the time. I can only wear certain clothes. In fact, he lays out the clothes for me that I have to wear every day. I have to hug him a certain way. I have to text him wherever I am. If I forget to text him, I get so mad. And he's very jealous. I can't talk to anybody. I call my cousin, and he gets mad. How can you talk to him? It's my cousin. He's jealous all the time. He said, if I'm 5 minutes late, goes crazy. Sits out in the car honking, wakes up everybody 1 a.m. because he gets mad, just gets so mad. He said, I broke up with him one time. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I began to go out with someone else, and he would follow us. He would got in his car and smashed into our car over and over again. Just so mad. So finally, I go back to him. I don't know what else to do. And he says he wants me to marry him. And when I didn't say yes right away, he took a candle there at the table and he held it up against me as if he was going to burn me. And he said, you either marry me or I will burn you. And I will burn you, and I will burn your parents' house down. I will never leave you. I will follow you everywhere to the ends of the world. You will never get free of me. I will be on you all the time. Took me out to a cemetery, and he showed me where he buried his first wife. And he said, this is what I'll do to people who don't love me back. And he kneels down and he says, love me and marry me. What should I do? What do you think I should do, Pastor? She said. Well, you can probably guess it's a parable. But there are some who think that that's what God is like. God is a jealous God. And he has 10 rules that he makes us follow, and if we don't follow them, I'll burn you forever. He's a jealous God. Wants us to follow him. Love me or I'll kill you. Is that really, one theologian said, does God kneel down in front of us and kneel down and said, I love you, but you better love me back and love me and marry me or I'll kill you. And here at the end of Revelation, we have a wedding. After all these beasts and trumpets and plagues, now God changes gears and now talks about this wedding in heaven. And everyone's invited, and we're the bride. And he's the bridegroom. I don't know about you, I hate movies that have sad endings. I'd come home, sometimes Hilda would be watching some sad movie, there's tissues all over the floor. Some mother is dying, of cancer with 5 children behind. I said, life is sad enough already. Why do you torture yourself when you have a choice about what to watch? Rather have everybody win, the good guys win. We sat down, we were Downton Abbey fans when they were showing. All these relationships between the rich people on top and the servants down below. At the end of the series, after 6 years, whatever it was, they decided to wrap it all up. All the people that had been dancing around each other, somehow it all worked out. They got married, they got married, they got married. These two servants, some people you didn't even know had a relationship, a feeling for each other. And everybody was married by the end of the show. Now we go away. Why can't life be like that? Here at the end of the book of Revelation, there's going to be a wedding. And as God's saying, don't worry about all that other stuff. I know you worry about that's who I really am. No, that's not who I really am. This is who I really am. The last metaphor God uses about our relationship with Him as a wedding, and He wants to say, this is me. This is who we are going to be. And He bends down on His knee and asks us to marry Him and come to live in His house, and we will have a 1,000-year honeymoon with Jesus. That's how Revelation ends. There was a day when Hilda and I were dating. We were in a restaurant, and I had a little notebook. Didn't have many names in it. She thinks I had pages and pages. But different people who felt sorry for their young pastor who was single would give me phone numbers and names, and I had 3 or 4 in there. But I showed it to her, and I said, I've taken all the other pages out. It's you. I am focusing on you, you alone. And we've been together 33 years now. And that's what God is finally saying. I don't want anybody else. I want you. Here I am. Will you marry me? Final metaphor in the book of Revelation. This is the archetype behind all the other love movies, all the other love stories that are out there in the world. Romeo and Juliet, Titanic, Jack and Rose falling in love. This is the archetype, the ultimate love story between us and God. In my generation, there was Luke and Laura, one of the soap operas. Everyone wanted to know when Luke and Laura finally get married. They milked these things for months and months and months. Finally, there's a wedding, Luke and Laura. All the love stories. And now, finally, God is going to get the one that He wants. Ty Gibson, the wonderful writer, has a parable where he talks about the prince. And he can't find anybody in his kingdom. Somehow he falls in love with this girl from the other kingdom. But they're sworn enemies between the two kings. So how to win this girl? If he goes over there with the king with an army, there's going to be a battle and it's not going to work. And he will never know if she wanted him or for that he was a king and had an army and a palace and money and servants. So he takes all his royalty off, goes as a humble person. And sure enough, she falls in love with him and gets married to him, and he takes her back to his kingdom. And they're riding, I suppose, on a wagon cart or something. And they're coming into the to the city, and everyone is beaming and clapping for him. And it begins to dawn on her, this is the king. But now she's already loves him. So Jesus comes down without the entourage and without the palace and without all of that. And he dies on a cross, hoping to win us over, and we will love him for him. Not for the perks, not for the miracles, not for the magic, not for heaven and not for palace and not for living forever, but for him. It's a wedding. I preached this in my church. I had a wedding, sort of. All the couples that I had married over the last few years there, I brought them up. I think I've done 200 weddings maybe so far in my career, 45 years. Here was Earl. Walked in the doors of our church from the Crystal Cathedral of all places, 5 minutes from our church. Something had happened there. He'd gone through a divorce, 29 years there at the Crystal Cathedral. Great place, good people. But somehow he's looking for something more. And he knew a young lady who was the preschool teacher at our school, and he thought a lot of her, and he said, let me go to that church that she goes to. Within a day, he was serving in our kitchen, and just a great human being. Came down to me one day, and he said, Pastor Dan, how do I join up with this outfit? We studied the Bible every day for 3 weeks, and he got baptized. Fell in love with a lady in our church who had gone through, was a widow, gone through cancer. Cancer was gone, but cancer came back, stayed with her through that. She kind of has some parts of her that are not as good as they could be, loves her anyway. Went through a month in the City of Hope. She was in an isolation ward, getting her stem cell bone marrow taken out or something. Loved her through all of that. And we had a wedding here, and then we had a wedding at her home place in Malaysia, in Sabah. Unbelievable setting. I got to do both of those, and a part of it, I had them come forward. Got her in a wedding dress, came forward. Another couple, a great story. Dutch girl came over to our church, single. Told us one time, Pastor Dan, I think I have found somebody. Young guy in Idaho, for crying out loud. Somehow got him to come down, lost his job, had a hard time finding work, got drunk and made a terrible mistake, went to the hospital. We had a long talk about this. And he woke up from that, began to have Bible studies, got baptized. I did a wedding. Pretty cool wedding. Every year they send me a picture. Pastor Dan, has been 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Baptized her uncle. Pretty cool. Audrey and Charles, 2 people in their 60s, found each other. Took a while before we agreed to do the wedding. Wanted to be sure this was really the right thing for them. Finally, we had a wedding in the church. My head elder was part of the wedding too. He passed out in the middle of the wedding. We had to call the paramedics. All these weddings we have done. 2 people who have dated, checked each other out, gone out to dinner, asked their family, what do you think? Come to the pastor. We do premarital counseling. Pastor Dan, what do you think? Are we okay? We're going to make it. We give them a test. And finally, they look at each other and said, I think it's you. And I've said in many weddings, I think of the gift it is. Out of 8 billion people in the world, and there's 4 billion of each kind. And someone looks out of the 4 billion and says, I think it's you. I want to do life with you. I think I'll take a chance that you won't hurt me. And then we'll do life together, and we'll grow old together. And God says that to you and to me. He doesn't just choose us in general or choose a church of billions of people. He chooses you. Chooses me. I'm going to be married to you. And he offers us a relationship that is closer than any human relationship. I'll be married to you. Married to God. Read Song of Solomon. Some people think that's only a human love story, and it's good enough to be in the Bible just like that. But there's a lot of us who think there's a second meaning married between us and Christ when it says, I searched all over the city. I got up from my bed and I searched for my lover. Where is my lover? It's God looking for us looking for God. We were made for God. We will always have desire, and I've said to many weddings, you will never be satisfied with this person. Don't put that on them, because you were made ultimately for Christ. And you will only be satisfied deeply if you have Christ. If you only have this human person, you will be disappointed at some point. None of us can fill that need inside of us, because it's ultimately for Christ. C.S. Lewis says, when we walk into the gates of heaven and we see the beloved, we will recognize in him our other beloveds down here. That God used the beloved people we have down here as a taste to make us hungry for the true beloved. He said, we will have turned from the portrait to the original, from the rivulet to the river and to the ocean. That God gave us this gift of love back on Friday in creation thousands of years ago as a gift to us, hoping it would make us hungry for the ultimate, making love with God. We delight in God. That's this message here at the end. Philip Yancey wrote a book called Disappointment with God. He went up to a mountain in Colorado, spent 2 weeks reading the Bible straight through, trying to get the sweep of the Bible. I'm reading some of the same passages now, Isaiah and Jeremiah. And God has this idea, wants to be married to us. And he says to Israel, I loved you, I brought you out of Egypt, I did everything for you, I gave you jewels, what more did you want that I could give to you? And I see you with other lovers. I saw you under the tree making love to someone else. How can you make love to the other God? They are not God, they're just idols. Stone, I am your lover. So God uses this rejected lover theme in the Bible. And then Hosea, he tells Hosea, go marry a prostitute, bring her. She cheats and goes away back to prostitution. Go get her again. No, God, no, yes. And then he said, this is how you have treated me. I've loved you. I brought you. I gave you life and love, married you, and then you cheat on me. How can you do that? Come back to me. I'll take you back. And then Jesus tells all these stories about weddings. He comes down and he turns the water into wine. He talks about the invitation to the wedding. And they didn't bring the right wedding clothes. He talks about another wedding in Matthew 25, that some people are ready to go in, some people are not ready to go in. Weddings. And then he comes to Revelation 19. Says there's going to be a wedding. We're invited to the great wedding supper and the banquet. Revelation 21, the city of New Jerusalem comes down as a bride adorned for her husband. Weddings. Ephesians 5, 25 to 27. Here's Paul, who looks like he was single, writes this great passage. Christ loved the church, gave himself for her to present her to himself. Marriage. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 2, I am a jealous God. I promised you to one husband, to Christ. John 14, I'm going to go prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I'm going to come back and take you to be with me. And we'll have a 1,000-year honeymoon. God. I have preached about sexuality on college campuses all over the world. And when I was a young pastor, we didn't want to talk about that, but we let the old pastor do it. Now I am the old pastor, so okay. I'll step up and do it. And I give people my list of why they should be sexually pure before marriage, before someone is willing to make promises to you. I said, be careful. God's given you this gift of what we call the mystery of sexuality, where you look around the room and you see this person and there's something that draws you to them, sexuality. And someday you'd like to see all sides of them. But God says, not yet. Not yet. Talk to them. Get to know them with your mouth, with your mind, with your heart. Who are you, and what do you stand for, and what do you believe, and where are you going with your life, and where did you come from? And we do things, and we date, and we eat out, and we walk, and we talk, and we call, and we wrestle with life. He said, finally, you've done all this testing out, and you say, I think I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to go with you. And you walk down the aisle dressed in a beautiful wedding dress, and you have a tuxedo. We watched The Sound of Music yesterday, and he had a little wedding, and everyone marching in, and it was beautiful. And now comes the moment where they stand in front of each other and say, I will be faithful to you. I will love and cherish you in health, sickness and in health, rich or poor. Do you so declare? I do. I do. They do rings maybe. They walk down the aisle, everyone throws rice, and they go away to a honeymoon. And you get in the car and you drive away to the best hotel you can afford. For me, it was a hotel in Santa Barbara called the Four Seasons. and you drive up to the hotel and someone stops and opens the door for you, and they open the trunk and they take your suitcases and they take them to the room. You go and sign in. You walk down to your room and here they are, and he sets everything up. In my case, he spent a bunch of time trying to show me how the TV worked and the lights worked and everything else. I thought, why is he going to leave me? Finally, I realized he wanted a tip. I had never really done tipping before. My dad did that. So I fished out $1 or $2 and gave him a tip, and he said, thank you, and he left. And for the first time in my life, I'm in a room by myself with this beautiful woman who said, I do to you. And we're together. And now, the Bible says, now you can take the mystery away because it's safe. And God is like that. God does not show us who He is. He doesn't answer every prayer. He doesn't do every miracle we would like. He doesn't dance for us. We would like Him to show Himself. God, show me everything. We'd like to hear His voice. Let us see you, God. He doesn't let us go to heaven for an hour just to check this out to be sure it's real. He said, read the Bible, that's enough. Read my stories, check me out. Taste and see that the Lord is good. And after a while, he says, when you really check me out and you are willing to commit to me, and you are willing to be sealed, Revelation 7, you're willing to be sealed to me, settled into the truth, that you are there built upon a rock, nothing can shake you. I asked people Sabbath, is there anything that could come that could take you out? I talked to someone the other day, converted after 50 years in our church, converted back to the church she came from, wanted to be with her sisters. How do you do that? No, I'm sealed. I do. I will be faithful to you in sickness and in health, no matter what. I will come live in your house with you. Then God says, when someone is willing to make promises to you, and God wants to know, will we make promises to Him? Then He says, come to my house. I prepared a place for you, and I will show you how I really am. And we will have a honeymoon together, and there will be a wedding. That's the background of Revelation 19. It's the same with God. That's the background of Julia Roberts standing in front of Hugh Grant in the movie Notting Hill. He says, it would never work. You're a movie star making $20 million a movie. I'm just a bookseller in a bookstore in London, Notting Hill. It will never work. And she says, I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her. And that's who God is. He's just a God. We think He's this God of the universe, King of kings and Lord of lords. Yes, He is. But He ultimately is just a lover, Song of Solomon lover, standing in front of us and saying, I just love you. Would you love me back? Would you love me back? And I'll take you to the place I prepared for you, and we will live in a mansion together. Even if there's 1 billion other people there with us, we will feel as if we were married to Christ alone. One-on-one. Who we trust. Every couple that stands in front of me is saying, I will trust you. Don't hurt me. I'm going to expose my soul to you. I will give you the passwords to every part of my life. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. And God is asking us to trust Him and do eternity with Him forever. Seal it. Anyway, that's the wedding. We can start now. The wedding begins now. We seal our life with Christ. We have Sabbath as a taste of that with Christ. And someday we will be invited to the great wedding banquet and be with Him forever. And the Bible has another metaphor here in Revelation chapter 19, not just the wedding, that's the first half. We have all these metaphors, and God needs all the metaphors. He said He's a father, He's a king, He's a shepherd, He's all these different ones. Every metaphor says something true about our relationship with God, but they don't tell us everything. All the metaphors have to self-correct for each other. So when we say God is like a king, okay, that's great. He has an army. He's powerful. He's great. But sometimes kings down here have done bad things, so we need God as a shepherd, God as a friend, God as a father to soften those parts of a king that we don't want. And here God has two metaphors. One is the wedding, and the other one is a warrior. You read Revelation 19:11, he's the white horse, the white dressed in white, coming on the white horse with the army dressed in white, faithful and just. And they're coming to make war, coming to rule with a rod of iron. And that's what we talked about last week, the battle of Armageddon, the two sides. And people think, see, there's the two sides of God. There's the wedding and there's the warrior God. His rider is called faithful and true. He judges and he makes war. But can we be clear? These are two parts of the same God, and the one metaphor can never contradict the other metaphor. He's not sometimes wedding and married and sometimes a warrior. He is both. And whenever he is a warrior, he is also making a war in the same way that he is love. He overcomes by the blood of the Lamb. These are two things that are both a part of God. God is balanced. Whenever he is a warrior, he is also a lover. When he's a lover, he's also a warrior. You can count on Christ because he is both. He will come and win the war for us, and he is also a lover who we will be married together. But they never contradict. One never wins out over the other. God is ultimately all, the best of every metaphor. And he is a lover, and he is a great warrior who's going to come down and set us free and take us home to be with him. Richard Foster, he's old now. I just read an article about him retiring. Great Quaker friend, writing Celebration of Discipline in his great books. He tells a story of going to the mall with a little boy, 2 years old. Has to do all the gifts. It's his time to take care of a little boy. After several hours of shopping, they got all these bags, and the boy is fussy and crying. On the way out to the car, the father began to sing this happy song. Daddy loves you. Daddy just loves you. You're the happiest. No rhyme, no really tune, just singing crazy love to his little boy. He gets across the parking lot and puts the boy into his car seat and puts the packages down. And the little boy looks up at his father and he says, Daddy, sing the song to me again. That's all we are. We all want to just hear God sing the song to us. And here in Revelation 19, God, of all the metaphors he could use, he uses the metaphor of love and wedding and marriage. He says, I want to marry you. Someday you'll come in the city of New Jerusalem to marry us. Be there.